For centuries, the world was told a lie, that progress belonged only to the rich, that innovation could only come from the West, that Africa was destined to follow, never to lead. But in the heart of West Africa, a young leader named Ibrahim Traoré rose to challenge that lie. Under the scorching sun of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré did not raise weapons or build skyscrapers. He built hope, piece by piece, from wood. Yes, wood, the same simple material that generations of Africans had used for shelter and warmth, now became the foundation of a revolution. Ibrahim Traoré looked at the old, rusted buses breaking down on dusty roads, carrying his people in discomfort and danger, and he asked a question that changed everything. Why must we always import progress when we can create our own? That question birthed an idea: wooden public buses, designed and built entirely in Burkina Faso. The world laughed at first. Wooden buses? Impossible, they said. But Ibrahim Traoré saw what others could not, that the real power of a nation lies not in steel or oil, but in belief. Each bus was crafted from strong, locally sourced wood, sealed with protective layers that resisted water, heat, and fire. Inside, smooth wooden seats were designed for comfort, fans powered by solar panels cooled the air, and hybrid engines ran on electricity and biofuel made from local crops. It wasn't just transport. It was transformation. To Ibrahim Traoré, every wheel that turned was a symbol, a wheel of independence, a wheel of dignity, a wheel of faith in African hands. He said, "These are not wooden buses. These are the wheels of freedom." As the first fleet rolled through Ouagadougou's dusty streets, people didn't just see vehicles, they saw victory. A mother carrying her child could now travel safely. A student could reach school without walking miles. A farmer could go to the city with pride, not exhaustion. The world once believed Africa could only follow. But Ibrahim Traoré showed that Africa could lead, and that even wood, in the right hands, could build a revolution. When the idea of wooden buses first reached the global stage, many scoffed. "How can wood replace steel?" they asked. But Ibrahim Traoré, the visionary president of Burkina Faso, smiled and answered with calm conviction. "We are not replacing steel. We are restoring confidence." For Ibrahim Traoré, the buses were never just about transport, they were about trust. Trust in the nation's craftsmen, in local resources, and in the collective power of a people long underestimated. He gathered engineers, carpenters, and students, telling them that the revolution would not come from foreign aid or imported machines, but from their own hands. Under his guidance, a new kind of workshop came alive in Ouagadougou, one filled not with heavy steel sparks, but with the scent of freshly carved timber and the rhythm of hammers on wood. Each frame was cut from solid African trees, hard enough to endure heat, dust, and distance. The wooden panels were treated with fireproof and waterproof coatings, while recycled tires from the nation's waste sites found new life beneath the buses. The hybrid engines, half electric, half biofuel, were fueled by the very land that raised the people: corn oil, sugarcane residue, sunflower seeds. Ibrahim Traoré called it circular freedom. Nothing wasted, nothing borrowed. Soon, the first prototypes began to roll across the capital. They were light, durable, and quiet, gliding across the rough roads like a promise fulfilled. Farmers stood in awe. Mothers wiped tears of pride. Students filmed the moment on their phones, shouting, "This is our bus! Our country built this!" For the first time in decades, the people of Burkina Faso didn't see progress as something imported, they saw themselves in it. Ibrahim Traoré knew the impact would reach far beyond transport. Local carpenters now had jobs, farmers gained income from supplying biofuel crops, and the youth learned that innovation didn't require permission from the West. And when foreign journalists came asking if wooden buses were truly the future, Ibrahim Traoré simply said, "Wood is just a material. The real strength is in our minds. If we can move a nation on wood, imagine what we can do with unity." That day, the world stopped laughing. Because the wooden bus was no longer a dream, it was a moving symbol of African rebirth. Across Africa, leaders had long spoken of independence, but few dared to live it. Then came Ibrahim Traoré, who refused to let freedom remain a flag or a slogan. He wanted to build it into the bones of Burkina Faso, into every bus, every road, every dream. For Ibrahim Traoré, self-reliance was not isolation, it was identity. He believed that a nation that fed itself, transported itself, and powered itself could never again be enslaved by loans or handouts. Under his vision, the wooden buses became only the beginning. Workshops turned into training schools where young mechanics learned to build hybrid engines. Rural women learned to process vegetable oils into clean fuel. Even schoolchildren were taught how sunlight could run a fan or light a classroom. Everywhere you looked, Ibrahim Traoré's revolution of self-reliance was growing roots. He often told his people, "If a farmer can grow food, he can grow energy. If a carpenter can carve wood, he can carve a future." And slowly, that belief spread like fire through dry grass. The new economy of Burkina Faso began to revolve around its own people. The carpenters who once built furniture now built buses. The mechanics who repaired old imported trucks now assembled engines from local parts. Farmers who once sold raw crops at low prices now supplied the biofuel that kept the nation moving. It was more than policy. It was a psychological emancipation. People no longer waited for foreign experts or charity grants. They waited for the sunrise, for another day to build. Ibrahim Traoré's office walls carried a simple phrase: "Made in Burkina, made with pride." He often walked through the factories, greeting workers by name, reminding them that their hands were stronger than any imported machine. International analysts tried to measure the progress in numbers: GDP, exports, output. But what they couldn't measure was the glow in the eyes of a young apprentice tightening a bolt on a bus built by his own people. That glow, Ibrahim Traoré said, is the real fuel of a nation. And as night fell over Ouagadougou, the hum of wooden buses echoed through the streets, a reminder that Burkina Faso was no longer waiting for help. Under Ibrahim Traoré, it was moving forward on its own wheels. By the time the first fleet of wooden buses rolled across the streets of Ouagadougou, the world was watching in silence. What they saw was not a miracle of engineering, but a miracle of belief, a belief that one man's vision could turn a forgotten nation into a symbol of hope. That man was Ibrahim Traoré. Foreign reporters called it an experiment. Western think tanks called it unsustainable. But to the people of Burkina Faso, it was something deeper, the moment they stopped apologizing for being African. From the rural villages to the capital, children painted their dreams on the sides of those wooden buses: rising suns, green fields, smiling faces. Mothers stood on the roadsides waving as the buses passed, their eyes filled with something Africa had not felt for generations: ownership. Ibrahim Traoré walked among them with no guards, no ceremony, only purpose. He knew his buses were more than machines, they were moving manifestos. They said to the world, "We are done borrowing futures." Under his leadership, Burkina Faso began exporting not only wooden buses and mini-trucks but also a new model of thinking. Mali, Niger, and Ghana sent delegations to study his methods. Soon, small workshops in neighboring countries started producing their own eco-friendly vehicles based on Burkinabe designs. An African chain reaction had begun. When asked about his secret, Ibrahim Traoré smiled and said, "We didn't wait for permission." That sentence would echo through parliaments and classrooms across the continent. In international conferences, he spoke plainly. "They taught us to measure progress by what we import. I say measure it by what we create." And Burkina Faso created factories for biofuel, training centers for young engineers, and an entire transport network powered by its own hands. Global media finally had to acknowledge what they had ignored, that a small, landlocked nation had redefined modern development without foreign aid. The headlines read, "Ibrahim Traoré builds Africa's first eco-transport revolution." But for him, it was never about headlines. It was about hearts. About the farmer who could ride to market with his harvest, the student who could reach school dry and on time, the mother who could travel safely at night with her child. As the sun set over the Sahel, Ibrahim Traoré stood before a new generation of Burkinabe engineers. He looked at their hands, rough, tired, but unafraid, and said, These are the hands that rewrote our story. And in that moment, it was clear, Africa's new face was no longer defined by charity or chains. It was defined by creation, by a nation that built its future from the earth beneath its feet and the wood in its forests. This was Ibrahim Traoré's legacy, a Burkina Faso that rolled on wheels of freedom, carved from its own dreams.